All right, a lot to consider there, and consistency has been key for these guys. Aaron Rodgers sitting atop of the list of the most seasons by a quarterback without ever changing teams. There 18 seasons with Green Bay. Is it going to be 19? We don't know. We just heard him say, is it Green Bay or is it going to be for somewhere else? I'm not sure. He is tied with Big Ben there, who has spent 18 seasons with the Steelers. And we have Pete Prisco and Rick Spielman breaking down the potential landing spots for Aaron Rodgers. We're going to dive in. Guys, we know the Packers reportedly prefer to move on from Aaron Rodgers. We also know that he signed a 3-year, $150 million contract extension last March. So I want to ask you guys, what kind of challenges does that present, or a deal like that does that present when it comes to trading him or trying to acquire somebody else? Rick, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Aaron is going to have total control of this situation because if he doesn't like where they're going to trade him, he can just go out and retire. He's not going to be hurting for money. The other hurdle that teams are going to have is cap maneuverability, because with that cap number, you have to have a lot of space in order to afford to bring him in. And if they can bring him in and he wants to go there, then is he willing to rework his deal in order to fit under the cap? So there's a lot more than just playing fantasy football. Just go here and here. You have to take all those steps to make sure that they work properly.
Yeah, and the other part of that, Rick, is what is his commitment to playing? And, you know, even if he got traded, is he going to play more than 1, 2, 3 years? I mean, what is the commitment? Because you're giving up assets to go get him. And, yeah, that contract is prohibitive. He would probably have to rework the deal. But, again, is he committed to playing for 3 more years? Or are you getting a rental on a player? I mean, that's the question that we don't know the answer to. He can want to get out of there and he could go somewhere else and restructure the contract. But is he committed to playing for 3 more years? And is that something you want from him to get a definite decision on that? So I think there's a lot of things at play. He can still play at a high level, but you got to take everything into account when you make a deal like that.
Let's talk about the potential landing spots. There's been a lot of talk about the Jets for several reasons. We got head coach Robert Saleh saying in a press conference, we're, quote, committed to finding a veteran. And then shortly after, they hired Nathaniel Hackett as their OC. So, of course, that's firing up speculation about a potential Aaron Rodgers trade there. Pete, we talked about this when Robert Saleh first made those comments about, being committed to a veteran quarterback. How likely do you think Aaron Rodgers goes to the Jets? And if he does he fit in well with that offense?
Well, I think it's the number one destination for him. I think when you look at everything, it just makes sense. They have a lot of good young players. They have a lot of talented players that are moving to the next level on that team. And a veteran quarterback could possibly take them over the top and make them a contender in not only the division but in the AFC, although the AFC is stacked with quarterbacks. So I get it. They hired Nate Hackett. Nate Hackett and Aaron Rodgers are very close. I remember talking to Aaron Rodgers about Nate Hackett when he was there and how much he enjoyed the quarterback room with him. It was a loose group. He enjoyed the closeness with the quarterback coach at the time, offensive coordinator. So I think it makes some sense. But again, the Jets don't have a ton of cap room. In fact, they're $3 million over. They're going to have to really get creative with the contract if they do make that deal. So I get it. I understand it. He's attractive. You're a team that you think is close. It makes sense. But you're going to have to do a lot of maneuvering to make that fit in. And you're going to have to give up a lot of assets.
And don't forget, they still have to sign Quinnen Williams, too, as one of the premier defensive linemen in the league right now. The other thing that I would add to that, Pete, is that I don't care Aaron Rodgers, and I know how great a football player he is, and MVP, future Hall of Famer, but he has to fit into the right system. And with Hackett out with the Jets right now, they would adjust the scheme, their offensive scheme, to fit what Aaron Rodgers has run the last 19, 20 years he's been in the league. So we equate it similar to like a Brett Favre when they traded Brett Favre to the Jets. He didn't have as great a season, or it had a little bit of a down season because of the offensive scheme fit at the Jets at the time. We were able to have him come to Minnesota. We adjusted our scheme to fit what his skill set was, and we had a great year and went on to the NFC Championship game and unfortunately lost that down in New Orleans.
So if Aaron Rodgers, maybe he does have 1, 2, 3 more seasons in him, he wants to maybe go closer to where he's from. We know he's from the Bay Area. Rick, do you think maybe the 49ers would entertain Aaron Rodgers as an option? There's already a lot going on there with the quarterbacks. You got Brock Purdy. Is he going to be the starter? Trey Lance, Jimmy G. That's all happening this past season. But do you think, Rick, that they would entertain Aaron Rodgers there in the Bay?
I think they would entertain it, but I just can't in my head have a conceptual idea on how they would make that work. They are over the cap. They don't have draft capital. They gave a lot of draft capital up for Christian McCaffrey. Would that be a great fit there? And kind of like him going back to his hometown and definitely putting San Francisco over the top. But they're going to have to do something at quarterback. But I just don't know how they would make that fit into their cap. And I don't know how they would make that fit because they gave up a lot of draft capital when they went off and got Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah, and you'd be admitting a major mistake on Trey Lance as well. We know how teams hate to do that. I mean, that's ultimately what this would come down to. If you decide to go out and get Aaron Rodgers, even Brock Purdy now might be out for up until August with that elbow injury. Even if Trey Lance is the guy that's going to be the starter early in the season, if you went out and got Aaron Rodgers, you're telling the world, hey, we don't believe in Trey Lance. And they traded up to go get him. They traded a ton of assets to do it. So I'm real skeptical on general managers and teams admitting mistakes this early in the process. So I don't think it happens. Although if Aaron Rodgers went to the 49ers, favorite in the NFC.
Oh, wow. Bold prediction, Pete. So the Raiders, another team going to be looking for a new quarterback in the offseason. Aaron Rodgers, he already has some chemistry established with Davante Adams. Could be a little reunion there in Las Vegas. Pete, do you think that would be a good fit?
I do, if he wants to play. I think it makes sense. And again, he's familiar with the offense. He's familiar with Josh McDaniels. They have a close relationship, or at least as close as a coach with that kind of tough personality can have with a quarterback. I think it makes sense. And again, you mentioned Davante Adams. There's a star player there. So I think when you look at this kind of situation, I think, in terms of Aaron Rodgers, look, he knows Davante Adams. I think when you look at him, there wasn't as close a relationship as it's portrayed. Let's just say that, because I've talked to people that know it well. They weren't as close as, it was often portrayed, and I think there's some bad blood a little bit there, at least between the two of them. I don't know that, 100% what's behind that, but it wasn't as close as it was portrayed. So I don't necessarily think that's the reason. But you go because you have a star player, and not just because you know him, but because he's a star player. And so I think that's a possibility. But look, Josh McDaniels, he thinks he can make anybody a quarterback. So I don't know if he necessarily needs to go out and get a guy like that.
I'm going to just absolutely disagree with you, Pete, on that one. I think that would be a disaster if he went to the Las Vegas Raiders. One, they're going to be looking for a vet quarterback that knows the system that McDaniels has worked with, and I don't think that's Aaron Rodgers. And regardless if he has a relationship or no relationship with Davante Adams, to me, that would be a disaster fit if he ended up going to the Raiders.
All right, Pete Prisco and Rick Spielman joining us here on CBS Sports HQ to discuss the potential.
He's always entitled to his wrong. Look, I love Rick, but he's entitled to his wrong opinion all the time. I mean, I'll give it to him. Look, you have an opinion, but it's usually wrong, but you're entitled to it. I get it, Rick.
Guys,
learn the game. Learn how chemistry works in this league, Pete.
Hey, that's my line. That's my line.
I got a T-shirt that says that underneath, Pete Prisco.
I was trying to intervene before things got off the rails, but Rick and Pete, you guys beat me to it. Talking about the potential landing spots for Aaron Rodgers and the QB carousel in the NFL. Thank you so much, guys. We appreciate it. For more NFL insight, make sure you check out the All Things Covered podcast with B-Mac and his cousin Pat P. In the very latest episode, they have an exclusive interview with Urban Meyer. They're talking about everything from his time at Florida to Ohio State and even Jacksonville and so much more. Make sure you check out that very latest episode. You can download and listen wherever you get your podcast, and you can also scan the QR code.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.